Let's talk property title. When you're buying a house, you're going to have the title of the property put in your name. But should you? What happens if you buy a home and it later is found out that there's a lien against the property from some service that the previous owners used? Or what if an heir comes forward claiming a stake in the property you just bought? We're going to cover all of those questions. What is title insurance, the different ways to take title, and why it's important for you to understand all of this in your home buying journey. Hi, I'm David Mercier. I'm a licensed realtor in the state of California who believes dream homes do come true. And this is part of my Home Buying 101 series where I'm walking you through all of the steps from meeting with an agent to move-in day. So you are armed with the most knowledge possible to make the best decisions for you and your financial situation and your goals when it comes to buying and selling real estate. If you want to work with me, I can help you buy or sell in any city around the world. I'm based here in Southern California, but I have an amazing network and can help you buy or sell in almost every city that you would like to get to. So no matter where your dream home dreams take you, you can always hit me up to work together. But let's dive into title. First up, let's talk about title insurance. You're going to be negotiating a bunch of different things when you're putting an offer on the house, and one of those items is the title insurance. Now, the title insurance is vital to you because it's going to protect you and everyone involved in the transaction, but specifically you, the buyer, from any fraud or defects in the title. Now, the title company and your agent and everyone involved in the transaction is going to get a report about the title of the home that you're putting the offer in or that you're opening escrow on. And we're all going to read through it. You are required to read through it and sign off on it. But working with your agent, we would talk through anything that seems out of the ordinary. But it's very rare, but there are situations where something is missed. Maybe there's a lien that gets recorded against the property from a service that the previous owners used. They didn't pay their bill, and so the company put a lien on the house. Um, and that for some reason at the county office, it didn't get connected to your property, but it's later found out, or the company comes forward because they see that the home sold, but they were never paid. Um, and so little things like that are very rare, don't get me wrong, but they do happen. And that's why we have title insurance, so that you, as the new owner, are not responsible for these past infringements on the home. Also, a title insurance policy will cover your legal fees if there's any disputes that come out in the transaction of the home. And so it's very wise for you to take out the title insurance when you're purchasing something. So when you're working through the steps of the transaction to buy a home, one of the companies that gets brought in is the title company, and they are responsible for providing this title insurance, checking over all of the records on the property, and then eventually they'll be the ones who physically get the approval from the escrow company to go to the county recorder office and record that the home has sold from the seller to you, the buyer, and that is what makes the transaction officially over. Um, the title company is going to send you a preliminary title report, and this is just based on public record from the county, all of the information that's tied to the title or the deed of your house. So things that are going to be included in the report are the current owner, a description of the property. It's not just the address, but there'll be some like a couple of sentences describing the location of the home. There'll also be a list of any liens, like I talked about. A really common one in California is with a solar company. If you're leasing your solar, there's probably a lien. That's not always the case, but but a lot of the times it is. And sometimes those can get transferred to the new owner. Sometimes they have to be paid off when the transfer of the property sells or when the transfer of the property happens. And so these are all things that will come out in the preliminary title report. You'd be surprised. Sometimes there are things that show up that the sellers are not even aware of, especially if they've been in their home for a decade or two. But that's why we take the report early in the escrow process. It's part of the disclosure packet that you'll be looking through to learn all that you can about the property. And then you'll talk with your agent and we'll decide what needs to be done to move forward. Another thing that will be listed in the preliminary title report will be if there's any easements on the property. For example, at my house, we have a power pole in the back corner of our lot. We have an easement with the power company that, with notice, they can come on the property and um, inspect that. Other examples of easement are if you share a driveway with multiple houses, there's probably some verbiage somewhere that says whoever is the official owner of the land that the driveway is on has to allow the people who need to go over the land to get to their home access and stuff like that. It's not super common in Southern California, but if there are any easements on your property, they'll be listed there. Sometimes they even will have like expiration dates depending on how it was set up. Now, before I go over the common ways of holding title on a property, which is just the ownership structure of the property, and there are a handful of ways you can do it depending on your situation, who you're buying the home with, you should check out the full blog post on Title 101 that's linked below. I detail out all of the reasons why you need title insurance and how to read a preliminary report. There's just a ton of details in there that I didn't want to bore you with and make this video super long. So you should definitely check that out. But let's go over the different ways to take title. Now, if you're buying your property on your own, you'll probably go with sole ownership. This means that there's just one person who owns the entire property. If you are going to be purchasing with someone else or multiple people, there's a few ways that you might want to consider holding title. First, there's joint tenancy, and that means everybody owns an equal stake in the property and there's equal right of survivorship. So that means if someone passes away, their percentage stake in the property is going to be divided up by the remaining survivor. Next, there's tenancy in common, and this is a method where you might be investing together with other people. And the difference of tenancy in common is it's spelled out what percentage each person owns, and their percentage is controlled by them. So they can will their stake in the home or property to someone else, or they could even sell their stake in the property. And so you want to pay attention to the difference between joint tenancy and tenancy in common. Now, some states have community property, and this is generally reserved for property that is purchased or acquired during a marriage and shared with your spouse. Now, different states have different rules for how to handle community property. So if this is something that you're looking into, you should definitely speak to your agent and your title representative before you make any choices on that. And lastly, there's also trust ownership. Now, some people will purchase a property directly through their trust and it will stay in the trust, and the trust will have rules for the survivorship and how it will be divided amongst the trustees. Some people buy a home and transfer it into their trust. It really depends on your situation and who's advising you. Generally, I would defer you to speak to your trust lawyer, but there are some states like California where getting your property into a trust is really important for the rest of your family if you're going to be willing your property to others. And I definitely recommend that you speak to a professional about all that's involved in that process. And if you ever need a recommendation, you can talk to me, talk to a title representative. We know lots of people. So that is the general overview of holding title to real property, real estate. And I really urge you to check out my whole post. And when it comes time for you to really start looking for a home, especially if you don't currently own, to sit down with your agent and your title representative just to explain your situation and your goals and get some advice from professionals on the best way forward for you. You don't have to make these decisions alone, and a good agent is always going to help you get well educated and the most knowledge before you have to make a decision. And that's something that you can even do way before you're actively looking for homes to buy. If you're just trying to make some goals and plans with me, we can talk it all through and you can weigh the options. And then when it comes time to make the decision, you don't have to stress about learning all about it. You have all the knowledge, you know what your plan is, and you can go from there. So I hope that's helpful. If you found value in this, please subscribe. You can check out my other videos on Home Buying 101. I put this whole series together. And if you need an agent anywhere in the world, hit me up. Thanks.